hold them off. You're going to have to relocate the covert. This is the way. This is the way.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This is The Way. I've gotten a lot of requests to do a video for the history of the Mandalorians and how Baby Yoda is now tied up in the future of the Mandalorians, so we'll break it down. There's a whole bunch of Easter eggs. They've already explained a lot of what happened to their culture on the show in the last couple of episodes. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. We're doing a merch giveaway. Yes, there is Baby Yoda merch finally, so I'll explain that at the end of the video. So at the end of The Mandalorian Episode 3, the Mandalorian breaks the code of the Bounty Hunters Guild to save the kid who everyone is affectionately calling Baby Yoda. It hasn't been confirmed that this is in fact a clone of Yoda or a completely new character, but because the entire internet is just calling him Baby Yoda, that's effectively what his name is until the show gives him a different name. The heavy infantry Mandalorian Pax Vizsla, played by Jon Favreau himself, leads the other Mandalorians in curb-stomping all the other bounty hunters, allowing the Mandalorian and the kid to escape. As he says, because they did this, they'll have to move their group to another secret location for their own protection. Pax Vizsla implies that doesn't matter because this is their way. This is the way. The big Easter egg for the Clone Wars series there is that Jon Favreau did the voice for a character called Pre Vizsla, one of the most politically powerful Mandalorians during the Clone Wars era. He was one of the last people to wield the Darksaber, and his ancestor was the one who created the Darksaber. It's implied that Pax Vizsla, this new character here, is one of his descendants. The reason why he and the other Mandalorians put themselves at risk to jetpack in and save him from the other bounty hunters is because their code as Mandalorians is higher than any of the galactic laws or the codes of any other organizations like the Bounty Hunters Guild. Think of them the way you think of Klingons: honor above all else and victory in battle. It's a very military, warlike culture. This is all taking place 5 years after Return of the Jedi, and it's implied that all Mandalorians are like this. Ultra tight-knit small groups living in secrets scattered all over the Outer Rim territories. Mandalorian culture has been martial for most of their entire history. There was a brief period during the Clone Wars when Duchess Satine tried to lead a more pacifistic government, but that was just a really brief period in thousands and thousands of years of history of them being very warlike. During Episode 3, the Pax Vizsla character starts yelling at the Mandalorian when he's getting his new Beskar armor, calling him a traitor to their society for working with the Empire. So Jon Favreau is also the person who wrote the episode, so he's using his character here that he's voicing to get through a bunch of backstory and exposition about what happened to their people after the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels during the rise of the Empire. Several characters on the show, including Werner Herzog's character, have mentioned something called The Purge, and Pax Vizsla here says that they can only go above ground one Mandalorian at a time in order to hide their numbers. The last we saw with the Mandalorian people was right before A New Hope at the end of Star Wars Rebels, where they had started to come back together under a new leader called Bo-Katan Kryze. She was given the Darksaber, and it was implied that the Mandalorian clans would unite again. They played it very optimistically, but then you hear about this purge. They're all living in cells all over the place, so it's implied that the Emperor did a version of Order 66 on the Mandalorian people. The only reasons why the Emperor would do something like that is because a united Mandalorian society is a huge threat to the Empire, and they have a really bad history with other outside governments going back to the time of the Old Republic thousands of years ago. They would have never become the Emperor's willing puppets, so that means the Emperor probably felt compelled to get rid of them. A very small percentage of the Jedi Order survived Order 66. There are around 200 of them running around the galaxy, hidden about. Based on what they're saying on the Mandalorian series, I'm assuming a relative similar percentage of Mandalorians survived the Purge. So you have anywhere between a couple hundred and a couple thousand Mandalorians all hidden in little pockets and cells all over the Outer Rim. In ancient times, thousands of years ago, when they were at the height of their power as a culture, they lived more like conquerors, ruling over hundreds of systems. About 1,000 years ago, near the fall of the Old Republic, when the government had weakened, the Mandalorians used it as an opportunity to challenge them for domination of the entire galaxy. They faced the Jedi for the first time during that war. They were no match for their force powers or their weapons, their lightsabers, so as a countermeasure, they developed their special Beskar armor as you see it today. The reason why that was important is because Beskar armor isn't just resistant to most blaster fire, it's just really strong armor, it's also resistant to lightsabers. But if you notice that all the Mandalorians have very different looking types of armor that all fits within the style that most Mandalorians adhere to. So just because they're such a warlike military culture doesn't mean that they're automatons. They're not like the clones. Even within the clones, they express some level of individuality. As the Mandalorian said when the Jawas tried to take his armor and weapons, he says, "Weapons are my religion, armor is his religion." That is not a lie. In fact, the armorer character here is actually the leader of their little group, if that wasn't clear. She holds the most authority over all of them. That's why her helmet looks a little bit different than the others. The actress that plays that character said that we'd learn more about her backstory through the rest of the episodes, but they won't completely explain everything about her during Season 1. They're currently in the middle of shooting Season 2 right now. But it makes sense that if armor is their religion, weapons are their religion, that the person who makes all those things, the armorer, holds the highest position in their society. So the Jedi are directly responsible for all these cool-looking sets of armor that you see right now. The Mandalorians eventually lost that war, retreated back to Mandalorian space, and then during the Clone Wars era, you have the rise of Duchess Satine and the other Mandalorians trying to become more pacifistic. During the rise of the Empire, Mandalore became an occupied territory, and then during the course of the original trilogy, you have what they refer to as the Purge. The origin of the Mandalorian people begins with Mandalore the First. He's the person that conquered the planet that they would then later rename to Mandalore in his honor. He conquered the Great Mythosaur that they referred to earlier on the show. Your ancestors rode the Great Mythosaur. Those were giant winged beasts, almost the size of small cities. They're like giant crate dragons that could fly around, that were native to the planet Mandalore. A lot of you have asked about the Darksaber, what's going on with it in present day. It's still around, we just don't know who has it right now. The Darksaber is just a normal lightsaber created by one of this character Pax Vizsla's ancestors, who became the only Mandalorian in known history to be accepted to the Jedi Order. Not the only Mandalorian to be Force sensitive, just the only one to actually become a Jedi. He lived and died about 1,000 years before the First War with the Jedi. Once he completed his Jedi training, he came back to Mandalore and became one of the most dominant leaders in their history. 1,000 years later, during the War with the Jedi, Pax Vizsla's family broke into the Jedi Temple on Coruscant and stole the Darksaber back, and even though they themselves were not Jedi or Force-sensitive, his family used the Darksaber as a rallying cry to reunite the warring Mandalorian clans together under a single banner. It remained that way for hundreds of years until the events of the Clone Wars, where Duchess Satine was trying to replace them with a more peaceful government. Bo-Katan Kryze during Star Wars Rebels was the last known person to possess the Darksaber, so it could be anywhere in the galaxy right now in present day. But what does Baby Yoda have to do with the future of the Mandalorian people? So Star Wars stories in general over the entire sagas, like the Skywalker saga of 9 films, mostly have optimistic endings. Because they're being so optimistic about the future of Baby Yoda, and he's literally the face of the future of the Jedi Order, the show also seems like it's laying the seeds for a Mandalorian restoration plot over the course of however long the series winds up running, however many seasons. Hopefully it will run for many, many seasons. Think about the symmetry of the Mandalorians' relationship with the Jedi and their relationship in present day with Baby Yoda, protecting the future of the Jedi Order as opposed to trying to destroy the Jedi like their ancestors did. They're also kind of implying that Baby Yoda will indirectly be responsible for helping to rally and unite the Mandalorians of the galaxy again. That's something that's going to take a long time though, because remember the new trilogy, we still haven't seen any giant groups of Mandalorians running around in any of the new films. Force Awakens happens 25 years after what's happening on the Mandalorian series. So if the Mandalorian is still alive in the present day of the movies, he's an older man, he's not super old, but Baby Yoda still developmentally would be a little kid, just way more powerful if he's this powerful now. So I'm not expecting any kind of Baby Yoda Deus Ex Machina in the new films or anything like that, but hopefully he'll somehow be referenced in the background or there'll be some Easter eggs for him. But let me know in the comments, do you think that the Mandalorian's actions and Baby Yoda will play a role in the reunification of the Mandalorian people someday? For those of you asking where all the Baby Yoda merch is, they did start rolling it out on a limited basis, but they don't have really big toys or the traditional type of merch that you probably want. They said that won't be available till next year just because they wanted to keep Baby Yoda secret so much, they didn't start any of the toy licensing or any of that stuff to keep it out of the press. So that's why it's taken so long to actually get some of that out. But there is a little bit of official merch floating around. My Mandalorian Episode 4 video will post tomorrow, so be sure to watch the episode when it's released later tonight. Everyone click here for my other big Baby Yoda video, and click here for my Mandalorian Episode 3 video. Thank you so much for watching, everybody stay awesome, I'll see you guys tonight.